Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third Connect workshop. My name is Jen Kilpack, and I'm the Director of Communications for Community of Christ. And I'll be your moderator again today. We've had so much fun hosting this series with our friends and colleagues from Latter-day Seeker Ministries and the Canadian marketing team. And before we get started, we'll do some introductions.
All right, folks, I'm up first. I'm Becca Loving, and I'm here in the beautiful state of Michigan in Kalamazoo, and I serve on the communications team at International Headquarters, helping with the digital marketing efforts. So that means seaofchrist.org and our social media profiles.
Hello, everyone. This is Brittany Mangelson, and I am joining you today from Saratoga Springs, Utah. I serve the church as the social media minister. What is my official title? Social Media Seeker Ministry Specialist, which means I produce and create a lot of content for Community of Christ, including Project Zion podcast and Forward with Community, and just different avenues for Latter-day Seekers to learn about the church.
And hello, everyone. My name is Parker Johnson. I'm joining from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I work for the Canada West Mission Center as well as Canada East Mission Center, at least for part of my position, to assist with public relations, marketing, communication strategy. And so I'm thrilled to be here with you all today.
Today's topic is Facebook basics, and we'll be covering best practices for your congregation with an emphasis on Facebook pages and Facebook groups, and just kind of talking about how they can be a powerful ministry tool for your congregation. So again, just a reminder that we'll be taking questions in the comments, and I have a second screen over here, so if I'm looking this way, it's because I'm looking at your comments. So please post those whenever you have a question, and we'll get to those after the main presentation. And then we'll just kind of do a Q&A session for the rest of our time. So today, Brittany is going to start us off, and I'll turn it over to her.
All right. Well, I first want to just thank everybody for joining us today and over the last couple of days. It's been a lot of fun getting to do this with you all, to just know how to increase our social media and website presence. So before we get into our Facebook basics, I want to lay a little foundation. The presenters have provided over the last couple of days 2 different things that we encourage your congregation to do to enhance your online presence. One of them is to update your information on seaofchrist.org, and the other one is to get your congregation connected on Google. Now, these 2 things that we recommend have a very a system to follow. There are steps to follow, there's an end product, there's a checklist to mark off. Facebook is a little bit different. Yes, there is a process to creating a Facebook page and a Facebook group, but we are not going to get into that today, and I'm going to point you to some resources that will help you do that. I often say that social media is kind of like parenting. Everyone has an opinion on it. Everyone has a style and a way to do it. Everyone thinks their way is right or correct. But the reality is there's a lot of different ways to go about this. So these are our recommendation with the goal of enhancing your public-facing presence. So everything that I recommend to you is with that goal in mind. And this research comes from listening to various podcasts on marketing. It comes from Facebook's own marketing resources. They have an entire website based on how to use Facebook if you are an organization. And so a lot of research has been put into this presentation. But again, social media is the ever-changing land. So some of these recommendations, or phrases or definitions might be outdated in a year or so. So this is our best understanding of what we recommend at this moment in time. So I want to stress that if you use this platform a little bit differently, and if that fits the needs of your congregation, we're not necessarily saying stop what you are doing, because with social media, consistency and transparency and knowing the culture of who you are reaching is the most important thing. And so we want to support you however you use Facebook. But again, these are our recommendations to enhance your public face on this platform. So Parker, if you would advance the slide. So one more step before we dive in. I want to point us again to the resources. Like I just said, there are some resources that might help you start your online presence as far as Facebook goes. So the communications team with Community of Christ has created a Facebook 101 guide, and you can find that on seaofchrist.org. I found it last night just by putting in Facebook in the search bar, and I think it was the very first thing that popped up. And this will walk you through basic definitions. It will walk you through how to create a Facebook page and a Facebook group and how they are used. And it's really handy. There's actually a lot of other documents that are linked within that guide that I will be talking about very shortly. And it is a very, very good resource that I think everyone who is on Facebook in the church really should be familiar with. So there is also, like I said, in that guide, I want you to be aware that you can find the photo release forms, and those can be found through a search on seaofchrist.org, or again, they can be found through that social media guide. And it is definitely our best practice to have everyone in your congregation sign a photo release form, no matter what, if you're going to be using their picture. And of course, consent is key. So if they are not comfortable having their picture on the internet, then we need to do everything we can to respect that. But those photo release forms can be found on seaofchrist.org. And as I mentioned, Facebook encourages people to use their platform the way it was designed to be used. So because of that, they've created an entire website that is dedicated to educating people on how to use Facebook. If you go to www.facebook.com/business, you can find articles and statistics and tips and all of the latest up-to-date updates that they give. And that is the #1 spot if you're looking for Facebook-specific questions that are up to date that I would recommend. So now we're going to do a little poll. So I think Jen is going to get that loaded up on the screen. But I'm going to be asking you, which of the following does your congregation currently have? And your options will be a Facebook page, a Facebook group, both, or I don't know. So feel free to answer that poll. Do you have the results to that, Jen? Awesome. Oh, I can't see statistics on my iPad. That's where I'm looking at it from.
Okay. Well, I will tell you what they are then. How about that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. It looks like 47% have a Facebook page, 9% have a Facebook group, 34% have both, and 9% are not sure.
Wow. Okay. I will be honest, I'm a little bit surprised by those numbers, but I'm also encouraged. So that's great. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about the differences between the two, and then as well as what we would recommend. So it looks like there is a pretty good amount of people out there whose congregations have either both or at least a Facebook page, which is really encouraging. All right, Parker, if you want to advance the next slide. So this is where I want to thank you all again who tuned in on Monday and Tuesday, because I had a presentation mapped out, and then based on the questions that we had on Monday, I thought, you know, I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different direction. So we are going to be primarily focusing for this time together on the differences between a page and a group. And the reason why I think that this is so important is because Facebook changes constantly, and they call different elements of their website different things at different times. There's different features on both of these platforms. And again, they're constantly changing. So again, this is the most current, up-to-date information that we're working with. as far as pages and groups go. So Parker, if you would advance the slide again. So a Facebook page. Facebook pages are a marketing tool. They are seen by the public. They are open to the public. So anyone who is on the internet can see what is on the Facebook page. You do not even need to have a Facebook account to be able to find what is on the Facebook page. Because of this, that means they're indexed through Google, which means if I type in the name of my congregation, in one of the search options will be our Facebook page. So it's really important to have a Facebook page that is up to date and that is consistent and that is aligned with who Community of Christ is. So you can think of it kind of as a billboard for your congregation that has a more professional or an anonymous voice. So even though a real person is typing in the posts that are going to happen on that page, they should be voiced with a more professional and just anonymous voice. So they're not necessarily, hey, this is Brittany and I la 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 la, because it's going out to everyone and it is what will pop up in Google searches or in Facebook searches and will be the first thing people see as part of your congregation. So what I do recommend you posting is what's going on in your congregation, any events, whether that be potluck or a worship schedule. You can post about the upcoming theme or maybe who is preaching. If there are any retreats, you can post the flyer for that or the retreat registration form, anything that will connect people to your congregation. Another good way to use your Facebook page is if there are any official statements that come out from the church, whether that be from President Beasy, whether that be from the USA team of apostles, whether that be from the international apostles, just any official statement, your public Facebook page is a good platform to promote those. There's also a lot of resources that the church produces that can also be shared. So the church has an excellent YouTube page where there are videos, there are sermons. We have the temple video that Bryce Veazey created for World Conference. There's mission stories on there. There's just a wide variety of resources on our YouTube page, and those can be shared. There are memes that are created through World Church's web or Facebook page, as well as Latter-day Seekers and other congregations are creating memes out of Doctrine and Covenant scriptures or our enduring principles, etc. Those are always good to share. Anything that you see as part of our identity. Mission stories from World Church's website are great to share as well. And just, again, anything that connects people and seekers to who we are. One thing that I want to notice that we will not be getting into, because it's kind of a deep dive as far as social media goes, but you can connect your Facebook page to an Instagram account if you have an Instagram account for your congregation. So there can be some toggling back and forth between what you post. And because Facebook owns Instagram, they make it really easy to kind of share in one place and then it goes out into both. But if you don't know about Instagram, don't worry about Instagram. We're not really talking about Instagram today. I just wanted to make that known because this is a relatively new development within the last little while, that a Facebook page can also hold on to an Instagram account. So because of all of these things and because of the outward public facing nature of Facebook pages, it is my recommendation, and this is in response to some of the questions that we had on Monday, but it is my recommendation that if your congregation has to choose one over whether it be a Facebook page or a Facebook group, I would strongly recommend that you have a Facebook page, just because this is what people are going to be able to see, what they're going to be able to find in Google. And it essentially is Facebook providing you a platform to host your own website, if you will, on Facebook. So when you're thinking about the differences between a page and a group, think about a page more as a Facebook website that is hosted through Facebook. Okay, Parker, next slide. So I have a couple of different examples of a Facebook page. This is World Church's official page. And so when you think about it, if you're on Facebook and you're scrolling through and you see something that is Community of Christ related, a lot of times it originated here, whether it was reposted or reshared by a different congregation or an individual. But this is the public facing platform of the church. And so there were some questions about how do you tell if you are on a page or a group. And so I've circled a couple of markers, although there are more markers on this, but the black circle on the left, it says following. And this means that you have liked or followed the page. You don't follow or like a group, you join a group. So I took this screenshot this morning. This is exactly what I see when I get on Facebook on my desktop. I didn't even crop it down at all because I wanted you to be able to see exactly what I see. So I know that I have followed Community of Christ on Facebook. And so I know that this is their public page. On the right, I've circled that you can send them a message. So all of the admins that are over this page, I can send a message. If I click on that blue button, a chat box will pop up and I can type in a message and it will go to everyone who is an admin on that page, which I think they're just members of the communications team. And then they will respond, but they will not be responding as themselves. They'll be responding as Sea of Christ, Community of Christ. So those are some dead giveaways that you can tell that you are on a page. Another one that I want to point out that I didn't circle, but conveniently it's bright green. On the bottom left-hand corner, there's a button and I can just click that and I can create my own page. So if you're looking to create a page for your congregation, really if you just go on any Facebook page, that will be there. So again, I touched on this a little bit on Monday, but on our pages, I would recommend that you fill in the information as much as you can on that About tab on the left. You can put in your phone number, an email address, your address that will link to Google if you are on Google, your website, any team members that are part of the admin team of that page. And so people can be directly connected to an actual human being if they want to talk to someone who they know who it is and not just a faceless admin, I guess. And you can create events through a Facebook page. You can actually do a lot. And so the next screen, Parker. So this is my congregation, Salt Lake City's Facebook page, and I am an admin. So this is the face that I see when I get on my congregation's page. This will be different if you get on Salt Lake Community of Christ page because you are probably not an admin. And so the options that I have are a little bit more expansive. On the bottom, that center circle, I can connect it to Instagram. I can create advertisements. On the left-hand side, my tab bar is much more expansive. I can even post a job opportunity if that is something that your congregation is looking for. There's a lot of different ways that you can use a page. You can go live, which means that you are streaming a live video, whether that is at an event or whether that's some sort of Q&A with the pastor or whatever you deem is appropriate. I mean, really the sky is the limit as far as Facebook Lives go. There's a settings tab up top, and that is where you can find just all the information on who is an admin, how your page is used, etc. There's also a sidebar, not a sidebar, but a top bar that shows where your inbox is, any notifications, your insights. This is where you will get statistics on your page, who is seeing it, how many people are seeing it, etc. And I want to point out that the profile picture on the Salt Lake page we got it from the communications folder that is also on seaofchrist.org. And so there's a wide variety of colors that are all branded appropriately. And you can just take one of those thumbnails and put them as your image. I ended up swiping our cover album from the main Community of Christ Facebook page. And so I'm pretty confident that we are branded appropriately. And another thing I wanted to mention, our page is called Salt Lake City Community of Christ, which is our legal congregation name. So there should be no question on where this is located. In addition to having our address on there, we've just made it very clear that this is Salt Lake City Community of Christ. Okay, Parker, next slide. So you might be thinking, well, this is nice and all, but what do we post? Well, I kind of already went over that, but I just want to reiterate again that a lot of these things that I would recommend you posting, you probably are already printing off in a bulletin or sending out in an email, or have a calendar somewhere that is hosting these things. So whether that be your events, your worship times, retreat information, anything that you would think of putting in the announcement page, that's probably appropriate to have on a public setting. But again, this is public. So if there is something that's more confidential or is too revealing of anything that would be considered private, don't post it, because this is all public. Again, anything that you see coming from Community of Christ main Facebook page is fair game. I run the Latter-day Seekers Facebook page as well, and any of that content and material is free for all. A lot of people they get kind of consumed when is the right time to be posting. So my recommendation is just to post consistently. There's all sorts of statistics that you can Google, different marketers, different metrics that you can look at. And in general terms, mornings and early afternoons are best. I've looked at several different charts with statistics of when to best post. And again, in general terms, about 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. is when most people are on Facebook. Some people would disagree, but again, consistency is key. And when you think about it, you just have to go based on your own geographic location. So what works for me in Salt Lake is not necessarily going to work for you. And the good thing is that you can look at all your metrics and see how many people have seen your post. So if you post at 6 o'clock at night and it gets seen by a bunch of people, then maybe try posting again at 6 o'clock at night. If you post at 10 a.m. and only 5 people see it, maybe that's a sign that you shouldn't be posting at 10 a.m. So again, it's kind of a game, but in general terms, 9 to 2 is a pretty safe bet. How often? You don't want to be posting 5 or 6 times a day. That's a little excessive. Facebook has, the internet in general has something called algorithms. And again, it's kind of a game, and you have to get used to a rhythm. You have to really settle into a rhythm in order for your stuff to be seen. And so the current recommendation is about 2 to 3 times a week. And that seems like a lot, or it might seem like a lot, but when you think about it, if you're posting a reminder about worship times, and then you can just repost one thing from World Church every week, and that's good enough. I can't believe I didn't plug Project Zion podcast, but that's another thing that you can share on your congregation page. So there really is plenty of material to post. You don't have to be constantly creating things. There's plenty out there to share. A lot of people are concerned, well, who should be doing the posting? Who should be running these pages? So it's my recommendation that a member of your pastorate team, or your pastorate, if you just have a single pastor, I recommend that they be an admin no matter what, just because they often have a very high level understanding of the congregation. And if something were to go awry, ultimately, the public face of the congregation is the pastor's responsibility. So having a member of the pastorate or the pastor being admin is very wise. Another option, if your congregation has a secretary, or if someone writes the newsletter, or if there's a person who updates the calendar or sends out an email list or anything like that, who's already working with these events and knows what's happening and can just kind of copy over what they're already doing in one area and just put it on Facebook. It really does not create a lot of extra work if you do it that way. So I have another poll for you. My question this time is, how many people in your congregation run your Facebook activity? So I'm talking the official Facebook platforms for your congregation. How many people do you have running it? And your options are 1 person, 2 to 3, 4 plus, or I don't know.
I'm going to publish the results.
Perfect. Thanks, Jen.
And since I assume that you still cannot see them.
Yeah, I meant to pull it up on Facebook, but then I'm just talking, so I can't multitask.
That's okay. So here's the results. 1 person running the Facebook activity, 27%. 2 to 3 people, 47%. 4 plus, 7%. And not sure, 20%.
Okay.
I did have someone say that they do not have a Facebook presence currently, so the answer is 0.
That's fair, but maybe you can be the 1 person.
That's what she said in parentheses. It's Carrie. She said, "I think I have a feeling I know who's going to get this job."
Perfect. So it's my general recommendation that you do have more than 1 person managing this. I know from Monday there were several people who could see that their congregation had a Facebook page, but we're not sure who the admin was. And I will say that I did a fair amount of research to try to figure out if you could figure out how to find out who the admin was. That was a clunky sentence, but unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do. Facebook, the best recommendations that they had was to message the page. So like I said, I showed the Community of Christ main Facebook page. If you click that button that says send a message, you can say, hey, who's the admin of this? And that message will be, the person who's on the other end of that will be notified. So hopefully they will see that. My other recommendation is to ask your pastor, ask whoever is in charge of activities, just ask your congregation, maybe in joys and concerns. Say, I have a concern about our Facebook page. Who is the admin of it? And not that they're doing a terrible job, but it really helps with the security of your content. If something were to happen to somebody's Facebook page, it's just always best practices to have 2 to 3 people be in charge doing the back end of that. So yeah, those numbers were pretty great. All right, Parker, next slide. Okay, so Facebook groups. And again, this is the time that I just want to reiterate, if you do this differently than what I'm about to recommend, I'm not necessarily saying that you're doing it wrong or that you're a terrible person or anything like that. These are just our best recommendations. So the purpose of Facebook groups is to build community. So Facebook pages are more to present your community to the public, and Facebook groups are to build that community. So this facilitates communication, it facilitates conversation. So when you think about it, if you see Community of Christ Facebook page post something, and then it gets shared, and there's tons of comments underneath it, and there's replies to all those comments, and there's lots of back and forth conversation happening, it's usually not happening on Community of Christ Facebook page. It's usually happening in Community of Christ Dialogue or Members and Friends of Community of Christ or a separate Facebook group. So the way that it shows up in your feed, the way that it is formatted and laid out, it just really facilitates conversation. So it's kind of a chat group. Anyone can post something, and then you can go back and forth. You can post memes still, but you would have a conversation about it. So a lot of times groups, they have rules to them, guidelines that can be put in an announcement section that just kind of put some boundaries and borders around the conversations. And every Facebook group is different. They're run by at least one admin or a team of admins. But again, they facilitate conversation. So these Facebook groups, they offer different privacy settings. So it's my recommendation that you do not have a public group, because how Facebook wants you to use these groups is by building a community around a shared interest. And so if your congregation has a Facebook group, they're wanting you to make it a private group, but a group that is searchable. So as I mentioned on Monday, Facebook is rolling out new privacy settings in their group as far as their groups go. And I made note that when I log into Facebook, my groups were all labeled the old settings. So I think it was secret, private, and open, I think were the old markers. However, I don't remember if I think it was Tuesday afternoon, I suddenly got a notification that said, FYI, Facebook is updating the names of your groups, the privacy settings, which I thought was really funny because I had just mentioned publicly that my Facebook was still running under the old terms. So on that notification, there was a little box that said learn more. So I clicked it, and this is what it took me to. Parker, if you want to go to the next slide. So it took me to that facebook.com/business section of Facebook. And it gave me this little handy dandy chart that was kind of a choose your own adventure, if you will. So it says, if your Facebook group is currently secret, it soon will be private and hidden in the search. So that means, and I think I said something absurd like Brittany's Cotton Candy Making Brigade or something. If that's a secret group, no matter who types that into the search engine, it will not show up. I have to invite you to be a member of the group. That is not my recommendation for most Facebook groups. So the next one, it says, if your group is currently closed, it will soon be private and visible in a search. So this is where my recommendation comes in. This is where I think congregations should be as far as privacy settings go. So what this means is that people can see that the group exists. They can see who the admins are. They cannot see who the members are, which I think is important, especially in my ministry. There's a lot of confidentiality issues that come up. And so people might want to join your group, but they don't want others to know they're in your group. And so this protects the privacy of those people. So if your Facebook group is public, it will soon be public and visible in a search. So not a whole lot has changed with the public. I was listening to a podcast a little bit earlier about marketing, and they kind of said that public Facebook groups can be like the wild, wild west because you really have no control over who joins. Bots might come in, you might get spammed with inappropriate content. You really just have zero control over what goes on in your group. And it kind of makes your job as an admin a little bit trickier because monitoring those groups can get tricky. So next slide. I kind of already said what this next little chart said, but it basically says who can see your posts and who can see who's a member and who can see the admins and the moderators in the group. So again, anything private, the people in the group are pretty protected. The posts are very protected. No one can see the posts unless they are in the group. If you are in a public group, however, anyone can see the members, you can see the admin list, and you can see all of the posts. So there are some differences there. Next slide, Parker. So this is my congregation's Facebook group. So it looks very different from my congregation's Facebook page. And again, for privacy information, I blacked out some of the pictures of the people who had been posting. But this is where my congregation actually uses this group, pretty frequently. We will put in prayer requests. If someone, I've seen people say, I need some elders to come to the hospital and do administration. I've seen I am sick or my child is sick and so I can't teach Sunday school, who can fill in? We post reminders about activities. We have heart-to-heart conversations with dealing with tricky family relationships. Questions about Community of Christ are asked and answered in this group, but it's a safe and intimate space that those who are connected to the congregation at one level or another are invited to join. So we haven't always been super picky about who we let in, but it is my recommendation and kind of how we've moved on going forward is that we are a little bit more selective because there is confidential stuff that is shared in these type of groups. Parker, next slide. So I want to give you another example of a Facebook group connected to something that hopefully all of you know about, but hopefully none of you knew about this Facebook group. The Project Zion podcast team, we have our own private Facebook group. So this would be one of those groups that is secret. It was secret back in the day, so you actually can't search for this. Only the team members are in the group. And the reason why I'm sharing this, and not that it's a big secret, this is just where all of our planning goes down. So we use this as an internal communication back and forth between the team. So you'll see that a little while ago, I posted our content calendar for 2019. So that's something that is just an in-house chat. We will take ideas for interviews, just any communication that happens between the team. This is one of the ways that the team communicates. So again, I show this to you just to show how Facebook groups can be used. They can be just a teeny little group of people that are working on a very specific project, or they can be a congregation that's a little bit more open, that's still focused on one central goal. Or they can be expansive and huge, and there are some wild and crazy Facebook groups out there that have thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And my recommendation would be landing somewhere in the middle. So it's a private group, but it is searchable. And with that, Parker, next slide. We are almost done. So again, you might be thinking, well, this is nice and all, but who should be in the group? Again, if this is a congregational group, I would recommend people connected to the congregation. I usually, when we have new seekers come to my congregation, I let them know that we have a private Facebook group, that if they would like to join, they are welcome. And that's just one way that we communicate Monday through Saturday with each other and give reminders, etc. And usually people want to be in there. So anyone that walks through your doors who is on Facebook, this is a great spot for them to be. What should be posted? Again, events, prayer requests, reminders, if there's someone moving, if there is a new baby in the congregation, somebody needs a meal, somebody needs movers, substitutes, anything like that, just anything that you could ever imagine thinking, talking to your congregation about Monday through Saturday. The closed Facebook, the private Facebook group is probably a good place to put it. And then when should it be posted? I would just say on an as needed basis. You don't necessarily need these groups to be overly used. It's not necessarily somewhere that I promote a lot of my own content. So I don't generally post Project Zion things in there, or I don't normally litter it with a lot of memes or anything. I really try to keep it just with an internal chat room vibe with the congregation. So hopefully that's basically my presentation. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a start on the differences between Facebook pages and groups. And I know that there's a million other topics that we could talk about as far as Facebook goes, but I did want to just focus on how Facebook can be used with your congregation on a very public way, in a very public way. And I wanted to leave time for questions. So with that, I will turn it back over to Jen.
Thank you. We've got a couple of questions in the queue. Peg is wondering, what are your thoughts about how to respond to someone from another city that you don't know, but has some associations with Community of Christ, but they want to join your congregational group?
So I think it depends. If this is someone who is in the area, I am in Facebook groups of the other congregations in my area, and I don't necessarily think that's not appropriate. Like, I think it's okay because our congregations connect on a level with doing different things. But if it's somebody from way far away that probably won't visit and has no contact with you on a day-to-day or regular consistent basis, I would just suggest that they like your public page. That's a good way for them to be able to see what's happening, but not necessarily know that Susie's kid is throwing up and so she needs a substitute for Sunday. So.
And if I can chime in on one thing there too, I think that if you create a purpose for that group, it can kind of be your statement of reasoning. If you're like, actually, I don't think this is a great fit for you. You live 2,000 miles away. The purpose of this group is strictly for A, B, and C. Why don't you like our Facebook page instead? It's where we're posting, what's going on and photos of our events and things like that. So you might draft a little purpose statement of that private group. And that might be a better way kind of to protect yourself from feeling awkward of kicking people out. If it might seem like you're doing that, but it also would just be kind of ensuring that that space is there for what it's supposed to be for.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In Salt Lake, we have a post, our pinned post says something like, this is for members of the congregation and friends connected or something. And I've often wondered if we should even maybe tweak that a little bit to make it a little more clear. But I'm one of the people that run the group. So we have a pretty good system down, I think, of who we let in. But yeah, having a solid purpose, I think, is really important.
Beth is just making sure that she's got this information correct. In order to be in a group, a member must have a Facebook account. Is that correct?
Yes, that is true.
Whereas if you just want to view someone's page, you don't have to have an account.
Correct. Yeah, because the pages will show up in Google, the groups will not. The groups are just in-house with Facebook.
We have a question from Karen that she said she was a little late tuning in, so if this got covered, she can catch it on replay. But I think this specific question did not get asked. Is about photo consents. What to put to cover all the photos taken by anyone and posted? Is it, what do you put for the dates? Is there a period of time that it covers?
I can take that one. So
Okay.
we have a social media guidelines document that resides on seaofchrist.org. And you can find that document by searching in the site-wide search or going to seaofchrist.org/connect. And in that document, I think at the very last page, it provides links to the photo release form for minors and for adults. And then it also provides some sample language that you can use in your bulletin or to post in your congregation. So there's information there in that document. If you have further questions about this issue, I recommend emailing the Office of General Counsel. And off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember, Jen, their email address.
Ooh, why are you asking me the hard questions
Oh gosh,
today?
is it legalservices@seaofchrist.org?
I'm gonna look real fast.
Okay, let's see who can get it done first.
Okay. It is legal services at Community of Christ or seaofchrist.org. Let's see, we have, Jeannie has a question about how the page got set up. So she said, our congregational Facebook page was set up through my personal Facebook account. Can that be changed?
So I'm assuming that you are an admin on the page, because if you set it up through your personal account, it still creates a separate page that's separate from your personal account, if that makes sense. So there are two different spots on Facebook. So you are probably an admin. You can relieve yourself of admin responsibilities, but make sure that there are admins to take your place. So if you add someone in your congregation to be an admin, I would recommend adding a few more, at least two. Then you can, just through your settings, remove yourself as an admin. And I don't necessarily know all the steps to do that, but Facebook is pretty step-by-step, and Google might be your friend as well.
And just for a point of reference, you cannot create a page without also having it, like a Facebook account. You have to have an account and be logged into your own account before you can create a page for something else, correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
That's the last question that's showing up here for me. While we're kind of seeing if anyone else has questions, I did want to say that earlier in the comment thread, I posted a link to the Facebook 101 document that Brittany talked about at the very beginning. And there's also a link to the communications page on seaofchrist.org that has the resource list with all of those documents there. Also, I think it has the photo consent forms as well.
While we're waiting on a question, I also wanted to point out, and this might have been covered, but while Facebook pages are public facing, if you do not have a Facebook account, you can't truly interact with the content. You can't like things or comment on things. You can't RSVP to events, anything like that. You can see it. You can see the content posted by the page admins, but you cannot interact with it. So it's good to put information out there on, and it's important to be maintaining current dynamic, engaging content, but your audience would need a Facebook page, or Facebook account rather, to actually engage with it.
That's a really good point. And I just want to speak a little bit to Facebook in general. I know that the demographics of Facebook tend to lean older. A lot of the kids these days aren't necessarily on Facebook, which honestly was a shock when I went to spec a couple years ago. But I will say that in my ministry with Latter-day Seekers, almost every Latter-day Seeker I come across is on Facebook. These Facebook groups have been used in a wide variety of ways to really build deep, meaningful relationships and connection. And so there's a lot of people who find online community through Facebook in ways that they can't find community in real life. And so even if your posts aren't getting seen by a lot of people, if you're discouraged, if maybe you do a Facebook ad and it doesn't get the result that you want, et cetera, I still just say consistency, because the people are there. It's just a matter of time, in my opinion, before your content and things get more traction.
Jen, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Robert had a question about guidelines on seaofchrist.org for live streaming worship services via Facebook Live.
So in the legal section of seaofchrist.org, it provides some information dealing with copyright issues and things like that associated with live streaming. That is the extent of my knowledge on that front, though. I don't know if my colleagues have anything to share.
Nope.
Vern had a question about do you have any suggestions about how to encourage people to like your Facebook page? He said many people view it, but don't actually click the like it button or follow.
Yes. So I run into that a lot. Like the projects I post are seen by way more people usually than are actually engaged with or have liked the page. A lot of times I will get a notification that says, Susie Smith liked your post, invite her to like your page. And then there's a little button that I click. I sometimes do that. I don't always do that because sometimes after like the third time of nudging Susie to like your page, if she hasn't, I just take a hint and say like, well, she's running into it somehow, so that's good enough. But Facebook does give you the option, if people are engaging with your content, to invite them to like their page. And honestly, I have to admit, I've had a lot of people nudge me to like their page. And if I'm not in the moment, I don't always necessarily just do it. And a couple days ago, I somehow got to my notifications where all of my suggested pages had popped up. And I was like, oh man, all these people have invited me to like their page and I've just been ignoring it. So don't take it personally, because I was not meaning to ignore all these people. But then I just went through and liked everything. So there is that option to give a gentle nudge, and I would use it.
Nice. Susan had a question about an inappropriate post. So if your page or group, I suppose, has an inappropriate post, can it be removed, and can the person be blocked?
Yes, and if you are an admin, I think, I'm not sure if you can remove or block people if you aren't an admin. But yes, if you are an admin of the page and of the group, you can remove posts, you can block them. If you are on a team of admins, you can send a message. Facebook right there gives you a message option to email your other admins to say, this is why I removed the post. If they try to come back, this is why we're not going to accept them, etc. Welcome them back into the group, I guess. So yes, there is that ability.
And I think if you're just a member of the group or have liked a page, you can hide it, but then that's just for you, like that's just so you don't see it, but it doesn't hide it for everyone. I think you do have to be an admin to actually remove a post. Carrie had a question about, Beck, this is for you. Does World Church use paid Facebook ads ever?
Yes, we do on occasion. We do use them if there is some particular information that we want our followers and friends to know about.
And then do you want to talk a little bit about boosting a post too that's slightly different than an ad? Or is that like 2.0, Facebook 2.0? That's not basic maybe.
Well, we can talk about it at a pretty high level. And Brittany, do you want to jump in and do that?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty easy. You can boost any post that you create, whether it's a meme, whether it's a link to something. And I have not done it in quite some time, but it's only a couple of dollars, and they kind of give you a projection of how many more people will see your post. And I think you have the option to do it locally if it's an event that you are locally doing. So I think that with and Becca, you can jump in too, but the block party that we did at World Conference, I think those posts were boosted. And on the consumer side of it, you can tell that a post has some sort of sponsored element to it because it will probably say sponsored underneath the name of the page. And yeah, that just means that it's a signal to Facebook to get this post in more people's feeds. And it's just a couple of dollars to do.
And I'll jump in as the cheap one. I tend to avoid paying for ads at all costs if I can. And so I would encourage you, let's say your congregation's putting on an event like a block party, for example. Before you post anything, I would try to find some people in your congregation or in your mission center, depending on how wide of a net you want to cast, and identify some influencers who could help get the word out more organically and free. So as an influencer, that would mean people who have a lot of followers, who are maybe well known in the church or in their communities, depending on the audience you're looking to target. And then to just kind of give them a heads up that you're going to be putting out this post. Could they like it and share it with their friends or maybe specific groups that they are in? and it will help to get the engagement up for sure. And I've had better success consistently with kind of partnering with influencers than I have with Facebook ads. That's not to say Facebook ads are bad. I think they have a lot of value and I have used them, but I think your first kind of step could be, if you're trying to save some money, to just kind of start from an organic perspective.
Donna had a similar experience. She said it's been her experience that you must engage your congregation by asking them to like and share the posts that you put up. She said, I started by sharing introductions of members, and the members would then share their introductions with friends. So it's like friends supporting friends. So an illustration of exactly what you just said. Thank you, Donna. I think we're getting close to our hour, and the questions have kind of slowed down. So does anybody have any closing comments before we jump off here today?
I'll just say that I feel like we covered a lot and yet barely skimmed the surface. So that is the way of social media, but hopefully we can bring you some more content in the future that relates.
One thing I think I'd also like to mention too is, Brittany talked about the naming structure. So Salt Lake City Community of Christ on Facebook. You also are able, with a Facebook page, to create a handle. So like at Sea of Christ SLC, for example. And whatever you choose for that, I would try to be consistent across your other social media accounts. So for example, in Calgary, our airport code is YYC, so everybody refers to Calgary as YYC. Therefore, all of our accounts are Sea of Christ YYC. So whenever I do any sort of promo, all I have to do is put the @ symbol, Sea of Christ YYC, and then I can put the icons for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and it's the same across every single platform. So I'd recommend doing that if you're going to be setting up a page. Try to be consistent and methodical about what you're choosing with that handle.
All right, Beck, you want to invite everyone to the survey?
The survey, yes. So this is the first set of online workshops that we have done. Thank you guys so much for joining us and bearing with us as we've tested out this new system. We've really enjoyed our days together with all of you. And we want to get better. We want to know how we can improve. So we have a survey for you to take. If you go to seaofchrist.org/connect, you'll see a box on there that says survey. Just click on that box and there'll be a short survey where you can provide some feedback on how we can improve. And then also, if you have any ideas for future workshops that we can host, we would love to hear those too. And I would say too, Brittany mentioned a number of resources today. You can find all of those on that exact same webpage, www.seaofchrist.org/connect. If you have any questions that weren't answered today or you're watching this on playback, you can send those to communications@seaofchrist.org. That's all I have.
Thanks, everybody. It was really great to be with you this week and especially today. So we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.